6 o'clock, and that means it's time for another Girl Geek Dinner. At this time, however, we are coming to you virtually for the first time.
Just going virtual opens up our access to you and to you to each other. Few people in various time zones, some people who say they're in London at 2 a.m.
I'm just super excited to be able to partner with Planet and bring this evening of talks to hundreds of Girl Geeks.
So today I'm going to talk about diversity and belonging and, kind of the climate that we're at right now and how it's not business as usual. And we're rethinking the way that what diversity and belonging looks like in 2020.
And when you do make that leap into your new role, how long do you want to be there? Is it a stepping stone to another bigger career pivot? For example, if you're moving to a new industry, or is it a way for you to grow and really deepen your expertise? For example, within an industry or within a field.
So along the way, I've had to pick up some new habits, some new practices and ways of working in order to make my stay in Remotesville as a remote employee sustainable.
What I'm going to talk about today about Agile development and estimation, because I'm a software engineer and we do Agile development at Planet. And these are some tips that might be useful on a day-to-day.
Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to handle big data in space and the different machine learning projects I've been a part of over the past few years.
My name is Deanna Farago, and my team and I operate a fleet of satellites that are currently imaging the entire planet every day.
So I chose a topic because this is something that I've been always thinking about it, and now I have the opportunity to talk about it, and I'm going to take advantage of this, is how I ended up here. So I'm going to share you my story.
Stories are paths to community and understanding. So think about all the stories that you loved growing up. There was some kind of connection that you made either to a character, to the author, or to the setting that drew you in and made it really memorable.
I'm on the business development team here at Planet. Business development means something different at every company, and here we focus on strategic partnerships and the commercialization of new markets.
At Planet, we have always been committed to diversity, but we are doubling down on our commitment, and particularly so looking with respect to attracting and retaining communities of color. And so for all of you online, we are looking forward to and eager to work with you to tap into a broader network of talented folks that you might want to consider referring to us or applying and sharing, with whom you know. But we're super excited to have been part of this and are grateful that you all attended.
It's 6 o'clock, and that means it's time for another Girl Geek Dinner. This time, however, we are coming to you virtually for the first time from our homes in Berkeley, California here. Sukrutha, where are you?
I'm in San Francisco, California.
And behind the wings, we have Amy, who is coming from... Amy, where are you coming from?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Awesome. And we have a bunch of people coming in. Can you use the chat below and tell us where you're coming in from? And while everyone does that, oh my God.
Wow. Orange County.
My home.
Vallejo. San Jose.
Normally,
Bangalore, India, my hometown. What were you saying, Angie?
I'm like, normally we get to see you in a beautiful office space. It's always great to just go to these different companies and go there, meet the people, eat their food, drink some wine, and then hear from their women at the company speaking about what they're doing at the company. From roles in engineering and product to sales. We're going to hear from a few salespeople tonight. It's really great and exciting to hear from all the women working, not all, many of the women working at the company on what they love to do. And we learn a bit about the company. And I'm just super excited to be able to partner with Planet and bring this evening of talks to hundreds of Girl Geeks. And then these videos will be available on YouTube for free later. So if you can't come because you actually have to cook dinner and eat it with your family, you can still watch it later.
I want to just call out, there's a few people in various time zones, some people who say they're in London at 2 a.m. That's awesome. India, 6:30 a.m. That's amazing. We're like, in a funny way, like just going virtual opens up our access to you and to each other 100% across time zones and across, borders and like across a variety of ponds. So that's awesome.
Cool. So I guess it's time for introductions. My name's Angie Chang. I'm the founder of Girl Geek X. I've been organizing these Bay Area Girl Geek Dinners, as we called them, for the first 10 years. And then now we've been doing Girl Geek X events. We've done over 200 events at companies big and small, at companies you've heard of and companies you haven't. I think it's really fun to keep doing it all these years because of that. You get to learn about so many companies that you never thought of. And you go in there and you hear about all the ways that the company has people working in these different departments that you never knew existed. And suddenly you're like, oh my God, I guess this sounds really cool. And by the end, when they're like, and we are hiring, you're like, yes, I know what you do. I know what team I can join. And I've heard from people at that company. I know their names. I can now find them on LinkedIn and poke them and send them my resume. So please do that. They are hiring. And Sukrutha?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sukrutha. I'm the CTO of Girl Geek X. Angie and I met, several years ago when I had just moved to the Bay Area looking for, other like-minded women like yourself to connect with. And I found out that there was an upcoming event with Girl Geek Dinner, and I saw Angie's name there. So I was like, that's awesome. I should, try to go. For whatever reason, I wasn't able to go that evening. And I instead managed to get the company I was working at to sponsor. Angie and I played phone tag for a little bit, but we ended up meeting. And I was like, this is so inspiring because that particular event had over 200 women and men show up. 200 people show up basically, and it was such a great energy in the room. I just couldn't get enough of it. I wanted to come back, and that's where our journey together started. And that was dinner number 11, and we've since had over 200 dinners. I've actually lost count. At that point it was one every few months, and we ended up having the frequency just go up. We then launched into podcasts. We launched into virtual conferences. So you can see all of that content on our website, girlgeek.io, just to catch up if you're new to this. Usually what we do in this situation is we, survey the room and we ask how many of you are attending this event for the first time. So I don't know how we would do that now, but I'd be really curious to learn from, virtually raising your hands, how many of you are attending for the first time. So, wow, I can see over the numbers counting now, over 40 people are raising their hands as the first time. Wow, that number's climbing, Angie. That's amazing. I'm so happy to see like so many first-time attendees. Generally, like for us, it has been amazing because we would get so much out of these dinners, the podcasts that we do, as well as the conferences, because the energy from, just meeting other people specifically like you may not have that access in your company. So we were getting so much out of it, and we would hear from the sponsoring company how they were getting access to, really motivated, smart individuals like yourself, where they ordinarily wouldn't have the access to. And likewise, the attendees would come to these events and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there were these many people who are just like me. And then they started to make friendships. And often Angie and I would talk about how important it is to network before you actually need it. And I myself was super shy and awkward. And honestly, I still am. And who knows with this pandemic and sitting at home, how awkward I'm going to be in real life when all of this lifts. But I do force myself, and I learned from Angie actually how best to, get involved in a conversation and approach people that I know I can benefit from that connection and they can benefit from it as well. So we started to build our circle, and, from that I learned concepts like build your own personal board of directors, people who advise you in your career and your work-life balance and topics like that. and then people who like give you honest feedback on how you can improve yourself, and so many things like mentorship and sponsorship, and how to go about seeking that for yourself, and how not to directly just go up to someone and be like, just be my mentor, but then not give them enough context. So how to go about it the right way. And there's usually tips and tricks like that we will benefit most from asking other people who've had shared experiences like ourselves. What do you think, Angie? What do you think people get out of this? Yeah.
I really appreciate going to Girl Geek dinners and then Girl Geek events, because we reach a wide range of women who are working in tech and engineering and product, also a lot of startup entrepreneurs and operations and marketing people, and they all intersect. And I think in our careers, which are going to stand for decades, we are definitely going to be changing our jobs, and our roles will be different. So I remember when I first met Sukrutha, she was a software engineer in test, and now she's a senior engineering manager. And it's been years, and it's been great watching her change her career and grow and continue to I think people look for people like them. So if I were an engineer, which I was 15 years ago, I would go to a Girl Geek dinner and be like, I want to meet other engineers. But then you would have the happen chance of meeting other people, women who are working in other roles. But then you'd be like, oh my God, this is actually really cool. And these weak ties and these relationships are actually really beneficial in the long run. I don't think I would have asked for it when I was younger to meet all these different types of people. But now I really see it's fortuitous, and it kind of pays to be a little broader. So I like the Girl Geek X umbrella, instead of saying I'm only in product, which I was for a few years, or I'm only an entrepreneur, which I was for a few years. And now, yeah, it's just a great place to meet a lot of people. It keep coming back. We actually keep seeing a lot of faces. There's always a lot of new people, and a lot of people that come back time and again based on who is hosting. So we'll be having different companies host virtual events moving forward monthly, so you can look forward to different companies. But tonight, we're really excited to bring you the Girl Geeks of Planet Labs. And I am going to be introducing our first speaker from Planet Labs, Adria. And here's a quick bit about her. She joined Planet's federal division in Washington, D.C. As a people partner, where she was able to continue her passion for innovation and data with strategic human capital. She earned her master's degree at Georgetown University with a research focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech. She is co-lead to Planet's Belonging Task Force. Welcome, Adria.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. This is such a great event, and it's my first time. Obviously my first time as a panelist, but my first time attending the event, and I'm just so excited to have so many people here, listening to our talks and just connecting with women in different industries. I'm excited to just attend future events later on. So yeah, thanks so much for the introduction. So let's jump into a little bit about Planet. I'm going to share my screen.
Adria, would you like to turn on your video so people?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I think we can all relate. I think this has happened to probably all of us. We're all in a remote workforce right now. So how many times, maybe everyone can raise their hand if they've forgotten their video once or twice. Yeah, it happens. So, thank you. That made me feel a little bit better. Okay, great. So let me share my screen really quickly with everyone. And we will jump into a little bit about Planet, and then I will, I will jump into my presentation. So about Planet, aerospace know-how meets Silicon Valley ingenuity. So from our spacecraft to our APIs, we engineer our hardware and software to service the largest fleet of Earth imaging satellites in orbit and scale our 7+ petabyte imagery archive growing daily. Planet designs, builds, and launches satellites faster than any company or government in history by using lean, low-cost electronics and design iteration. Our doves, which make up the world's largest constellation of Earth imaging satellites, line scan the planet to image the entire Earth daily, which is really cool. We launch new satellites into orbit every 3 or 4 months. Most Earth imaging companies don't build their own satellites, but we're not like most Earth imaging companies. Planet designs and builds its satellites in-house, allowing us to iterate often and pack the latest technology into our small satellites. Complete vertical integration enables us to respond quickly to customer needs and perpetually evolve our technology. Operating one satellite is a challenge, but operating 200 is completely unprecedented. If you haven't checked out our TED Talk on YouTube, I highly suggest you do. Planet's mission is really cool. I'll dive into a little bit about why I love working at Planet in a little bit, but it really is unprecedented. So our mission control team uses patented automation software to manage our fleet of satellites, allowing just a handful of people to schedule imaging windows, push software into orbit, and download images to 45 ground stations throughout the world. Planet processes and delivers imagery quickly and efficiently. We use the Google Cloud platform and enable custom processing so that customers can tap directly into our data the same way we do. Our data pipeline ensures easy web and API access to Planet's imagery and archive, and we make every scene available as a tile service, composite scenes into mosaics, and build time-sliced mosaics so you can see change over time. So that's a little bit about us. I am the first speaker, so I'm just going to dive into my talk. I hope that was kind of a high-level overview of Planet. Every person that works at Planet is super passionate about our mission and what we do, and I really can say that every time I'm out on the street and I do tell people that I work for Planet, our mission is just so cool, that we build our own satellites and we have daily Earth imaging. It really is unprecedented. It's a really cool place to work. So on to my talk. So I'm the people partner for Planet Federal. I work out of Washington, D.C. And Planet Federal is it's the government arm of Planet. So we partner with the government. I function as the people partner, which is basically HR. And the people partner does function kind of as an HR business partner. So today I'm going to talk about diversity and belonging and, kind of the climate that we're at right now and how it's not business as usual. And we're rethinking the way that what diversity and belonging looks like in 2020. So a little bit about me. I like to use the group identity wheel anytime I do any type of speaking related to diversity and belonging, because I think this is a really good representation, at least for me, the way I like to represent myself and my different group identities. So I am a cisgendered woman. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a US national, identify as agnostic. I am a Black, queer, lesbian, living with disability. I'm a millennial, upper middle class, and I do hold an advanced degree. So this framework is really good for me, and I think it's really good for others, just to kind of show, places where I'm marginalized and places where, different group identities that I am also dominant. So let's jump in. So why I joined Planet? It was an industry jump for me. I had about 7 years in human resources. I started as a generalist. I grew into leadership, and then I later expanded into consultancy. I'm really passionate about strategic HR and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, I began looking for something in the tech industry. I wanted to feel really connected to the mission of the next place that I landed. So I was instantly intrigued by Planet and their core values. So why I love working at Planet, and this is what keeps me passionate, keeps me engaged. It's why I show up to work every day. I love my team. They're brilliant. And I can actually say this globally across Planet. We just have a really talented group of individuals that work for our company. So, if we're at coffee chats or happy hours or whatever, you can just listen to people for hours. Everyone is just, brilliant at what they do, and everyone is so passionate about how they contribute to Planet's mission. the work that I do is really great for me. It is what I'm passionate about. I get to do that every day. Planet is dedicated to agility and learning, which is something that's really important to me, especially being in the people department. I love working on the people team because I really enjoy fostering connection and collaboration between teams. So let's dive into the topic today of what I wanted to talk about for this lightning talk, which is diversity and belonging. So we did have this year has been a tough year, and I think we're all in agreement. We faced a global pandemic. We're facing systematic racism and police brutality, political unrest, and let us not forget the murder hornet scare in May. And just in case you did forget, I put a little slide here. It did terrify me, I think, as well as some others. So wanted to add a little bit of levity there. This was an addition to our plates, I think, that we did not need in May. But so let's dive into the topic for today. So we are a nation that's currently experiencing trauma. Filmed police brutality and racist interactions have flooded our broadcasts as well as social media. It's something that we're seeing every day. And many from all backgrounds and racial identities have filled the streets in protest to support Black Lives Matter. And so in response to this, a number of companies have put out statements in solidarity, and it's forcing many companies, including Planet, to grapple with internal diversity statistics and consequently rethink diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So let's talk a little bit about statistics. So statistics show that Black employees are left behind. In 2014, Google released their diversity statistics, which many tech companies followed suit after that. But before that, it wasn't something that companies widely released. Statistics over the past 6 years have shown that despite diversity efforts by most organizations, Black representation remains extremely low, with a net change that is almost non-existent. Statistics do show a slight increase for women in tech, which shows that some diversity efforts are working, but some groups, marginalized groups, are still being left behind, which is super important to look at. So let's look a little bit at the delta for Black employees in tech. So this is a really good representation to just kind of show you, over the past 5 to 6 years, there really hasn't been a change despite companies having a large funding towards diversity, having diversity programs in place. The numbers still remain extremely low. There has been, as I said, an increase for women in tech. It's been a small increase. There's still so much room to go, but there has been some strides made there. So just wanted to show a little bit of visual representation of that data. So let's talk about why diversity efforts are failing. And this is what I mean when I'm talking about diversity, quote unquote, business as usual. This is what companies have been doing for decades. Despite a few new bells and whistles that came about in the 90s, companies have been essentially doubling down on the same approaches that they've been doing since the 60s, which is, diversity training to reduce bias. I think many of us have held trainings like that if you're in people operations like I am, or maybe you've attended a training like that, hiring tests that and performance ratings that limit bias, and putting grievance systems in place for employees to challenge managers. These tools are really designed to preempt lawsuits. And I think that framework is even in the wording. When we do attend these trainings, it's very, it's fear-based, I would say. But, they don't dive further than that. They don't dive further to promote equity and inclusion. And so now we're seeing a shift. Employees are demanding change. Companies can no longer operate business as usual in diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Employees don't want a PR statement from the organization, but rather they want to see a clear action plan related to inclusion and anti-racist efforts. And this really falls in the wheelhouse of the people team. It is an organizational-wide effort, but it's something that I'm proud to be involved in, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. So moving toward belonging and the new landscape for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So I really, really love this framework, and I wanted to make sure I included it in this talk. So diversity has no meaning without inclusion and belonging. And so diversity is like being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. And belonging is dancing like no one is watching. So belonging is really being able to show up at work as your true self, and being able to be your authentic self in the workplace. You know, we spend so much time at work that really, you know, having this piece where you're being invited to the party without having these other pieces, just it's really, it doesn't mean anything, you know. So these diversity, this is exactly why these diversity efforts are failing. I'm not going to dive super into the inclusion framework here, but I did want to include a visual of, you know, the sweet spot for inclusion, which is a high level of belongingness and a high value in uniqueness. And what that results in is an individual being treated as an insider and also allowed and encouraged to retain uniqueness within their work group. So let's talk a little bit about definitions, because a lot of times I think, you know, you can get these trendy words that are happening within, you know, diversity, or that are even happening within HR or within people. Belonging can be kind of pegged as a trendy word, and it's really not. So I wanted to be explicit about the definitions. So belongingness has to do with whether or not a person is and feels treated as an organizational insider. And uniqueness is measured by the degree to which an individual feels he or she can bring his or her full self to the work without needing to assimilate to cultural norm. And so the degree to which an employee can fully engage, feel safe, and feel connected in the workplace greatly depends on these two categories. And like I said, you know, these can often be left out of diversity programs. So let's dive a little further into diversity without belonging. So like I said, you know, diversity without belonging and inclusion allows marginalized groups into the organization, but then it forces them to fit in to the existing dominant culture. And so, you know, many Black employees, for example, experience a pass on promotion, noting that they should get to know other managers more, or network more, or connect more. And there's really not explicit definitions in terms of what that really means. And, you know, so for many marginalized groups, Black employees specifically, you know, they report feeling not feeling safe to connect at work and be their authentic self due to cultural difference and fear of bias or repercussions. So there's a real barrier there. Statistics show that attrition rates among Black employees and those of other marginalized groups are much higher. And a 2017 report surveyed over 2,000 tech employees who left their jobs. And it found that many people of color felt that they had unfairly been passed over for promotion, faced stereotyping or bias related to quote unquote fitting in or connecting with others. So let's talk about getting it right? So I mean, that's what I really want to talk about in this talk. And so when belonging and inclusion are embedded in company culture, it no longer forces employees to fit into the dominant culture, but rather it builds a culture around everyone's unique identities. So rethinking strategy. Belonging must become the heartbeat behind an organization's culture and core values. And I'm proud to say that that's something Planet is working towards, and I think that they value. I'm the co-lead on the Belonging Task Force, and so I can really say that that is embedded in Planet's core values. Without inclusion and belonging, employees do not feel as though they can show up as their authentic self at work, like I said before. And this inhibits recruitment, retention, and promotion of marginalized groups. And it also inhibits diverse voices from speaking up and being heard. So let's talk about creating sustainable change. An internal and external audit is something that must be done. So companies, including Planet, must take a long, hard look in the mirror, and they must sit with what they see. What are the diversity statistics amongst marginalized groups, specifically Black employees in this climate? What are the attrition rates amongst these groups? And how do these systems that, organizations have in place contribute to oppression of these groups? creating a safe space for employees and fostering belonging is also really important. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard about employee resource groups, or maybe you're a member of one. They're a great place to create, a safe space for employees to connect. They've actually been in effect since 1964, and they were established as a response to anti-Black prejudice following the 1964 riots in New York. And they've continued to be a huge part of the tech community. But companies must really be careful to utilize these groups as a safe space rather than placing extra burden on them by forcing them to do organizational diversity work and education on top of their jobs. So especially with us being women in tech, sometimes the burden can fall on the marginalized group to do the education, to do the work on top of their jobs. And that's not really the purpose of an employee resource group. It's to create that safe space, to create belonging, and to create connection. So employees should really, watch that and be careful of putting that burden on the employees. So, looking at the internal and external pipeline of candidates is also really important. So, talent and recruitment reform, I think, is the biggest part of this. You want to audit your hiring practices, and broadening the schools that you recruit from is really important, and including HBCUs is also really important. Recognizing bias against HBCUs and other university programs as being seen as a lower bar, I think, is the first step in that. I think that's something that a lot of tech companies are looking at right now. Also auditing referral programs. So I think referral programs sometimes can fall by the wayside, especially in tech. And so if a workforce is already homogenous, referrals can further contribute to this, as referrals from employees tend to be within their own identity group. So, I challenge everyone on this video to kind of think about, when you're referring people into your organizations, are you amplifying diverse voices? Who are you referring? Is it homogenous? This is something that, even as employees, we can be thinking about when we're bringing people into our organization. Addition of external efforts, and this is something I'm really proud to partner or be involved with Planet N. So recognizing the disparity of marginalized groups in tech and committing to investment in community partnerships and education is also huge in creating sustainable change. An example of this is investing money to give Black and Latinx students exposure to geospatial and STEM studies, and potentially creating an internship pipeline based on such programs. And the last portion I want to talk about is mentorship programs. I think Angie kind of highlighted, if it was either Angie or Amy, kind of highlighted mentorship in the beginning of this. And so, people in senior roles tend to want to mentor and groom people who look like them or remind them of themselves. And, this is implicit bias. It's unconscious bias. It's not on purpose. But this means that people in marginalized groups often do not have someone to advocate for them. And so organizations, and managers within these organizations, if you're a people leader on your team, you should be intentional about diversity in mentorship programs rather than, leaving it up to senior management. And so the last portion is stamina. This isn't a checklist. This isn't a quick fix. This isn't a measurable ROI. ROI is like always what executives want to hear. If you're on the operations team, or maybe you're a people leader on your team, I'm sure you talk a lot about ROI, building business cases for everything that you want to pass through. But that's not the case here. This is systemic change that we're trying to create at the organizational level, which is sustained over years of hard work to see measurable results. So companies must commit to sustainable change over time at every level of the company to value and prioritize diverse and inclusive workforces. So, I'll end this just by saying I am so excited to be a part of these efforts at Planet, and I look so much forward to seeing sustainable change within our company. And I hope that, your companies are also working to create sustainable change. I hope that you're your voices are being heard, and this is a really important time, for all of our companies, especially within the tech community. So I'll be excited to see, what type of change happens, within the tech community and, years to come. So thank you so much.
Hi, thank you so much, Adria. That was wonderful. It was really inspiring, for sure, for me. We're gonna switch over to our next amazing panelist, Lisa Huang-North. I'm gonna do a quick introduction and then we can jump into Lisa. Wow, great background, Lisa. Lisa is a product and program lead at Planet. The team is responsible for delivering product solutions that help customers scale their business. Before joining Planet, Lisa worked for over a decade in strategic consulting, finance, digital marketing, and full stack software engineering. In her free time, you can find Lisa building Lego Technic sets, coaxing her sourdough starter, and dreaming of the day when we can all travel to see friends and family again. Oh my gosh, don't we all? Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the intro. Let me share my screen. Hopefully everyone had a great time listening to Adria's talk. I'm really excited to be following such a fantastic speaker. So can you all see my screen? Hopefully yes. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so really today I'm hoping to speak with you around pivoting. And I think especially with 2020, right, it's really thrown a spanner. I think a lot of people's plan, whether that be life plans or career plans, and career pivots, there's never really a good time for it, but I think it's even more stressful when there's uncertainties around that. So I'm hoping today I can share 3 lessons from our satellite operation team and really get you to think around how you can plan for your career pivot. So to start, let's see, here we go. All right, so firstly, about me. I'm currently a product and program lead here at Planet, and I'm also a part of our Wonder Woman ERG group that Adria kind of mentioned earlier, Public Belonging Task Force. I call myself a pivoteur with 5 career pivots, and prior to COVID shutdown, I love to travel. So hopefully that's something that resonates with everyone. And here I just included a short quote because I think that was part of what inspired my brief or the talk was Robert Frost's poem around traveling or taking the road less traveled. All right, so the first lesson, what are your areas of interest? So a lot of the time for our satellite operation team, the first thing they need to know about testing our satellite is where do you want to look and what do you care about? I will use 2 use cases to kind of try to explain. The first one, perhaps you're in agriculture, perhaps you're a farmer, in which case the area that interests you could be roads, right? You're trying to find the roads that will help you travel to your farms. Versus if you're a civil government, for example, someone in San Francisco who is doing city planning, the things you care about will probably be buildings, right? Or infrastructure, and not so much about the road itself to a farmland area. Using this lesson similarly for you when you're planning your career pivots or career changes, that will be my question to you. What are your areas of interest? That can be an industry, vertical, perhaps you really love tech or you want to try out finance or nonprofit. Maybe it's a skill set that you want to gain along the way. Or perhaps it's really about a national or geographic location. You want to move to the city or you want to be closer to family. Right? So those are interesting points to consider around your area of interest. In my case, it was a combination of all of those when I did my first 2 career pivots, I would say. I started off in Chicago, my career as a mutual fund data analyst. So that was at Morningstar. And one of the things that I personally felt was really important was a chance to work abroad, because I think it's important to learn about different culture and get a chance to work and live in those places instead of just a temporary traveler. And that's what brought me to my first opportunity, where the company went through a merger and acquisition, and I volunteered, interviewed, and ended up moving to Cape Town, South Africa, where I headed up the data operations for our sub-Saharan African office. And that's the picture on the left. And after doing that for a couple of years, I realized, hey, data analyst is great. I get to learn a lot about data operations and logistics and business analytics. But I really want to do something more creative now. And I love something that's more customer facing and somewhere where I can work on my marketing or communication skills. So that was my second pivot, where I moved and became a food writer. I know, a little off course, but it was something fun. I was in my early 20s. And for me, it was about the skill set that I wanted to gain and in an immediate format. All right, lesson number 2. What are your time of interest? So a lot of the time for our satellite operation team, they need to know what's a targeted time period where our customers, our users will want to see imagery of. Again, going back to the earlier examples, if you are in agriculture, for example, a farmer, your time of interest is probably quite seasonal. For example, with this picture, you actually see a lot of the circular fields that you'll spot throughout the US. And in their case, their time of interest will probably be spring because they're planning for the growing season and they really need to know what the health of their fields are. However, going back to civil government, if you're looking at zoning or city planning, or even thinking about where do I want to develop the city, right? Building more infrastructure, building new highways. Some of those time of interest could be longer term. Instead of a season, you're looking at year on year or even multi-year horizons. So think about that. When you're going through a career change or planning for it, what is your time of interest? Are you looking at something that will happen within the next 12 months, 2 years? And when you do make that leap into your new role, how long do you want to be there? Is it a stepping stone to another bigger career pivot? For example, if you're moving to a new industry, or is it a way for you to grow and really deepen your expertise, for example, within an industry or within a field? And feel free to put your thoughts in the Q&A as well. I think it's always fun to make it interactive as you're pondering through these lessons. So in my case, I would say while I was becoming a food writer, I kind of fell into digital marketing because a lot of writing, communication, as you know, are augmented by social media. And from there, I discovered one of my passions, which is in public speaking. So for me, my time of interest at the time was to really hone my public speaking skills and communication skills. And one of my kind of capstone projects or goal I set for myself was to speak at the TEDx event. And at the time, Cape Town held or organized various TEDx events. There's ones organized by the university. There's ones organized by the city itself. And I was able to, again, submit the talk proposal and be selected and really present it. And that was where I had the unique opportunity to meet Archbishop Desmond Tutu as well. Still one of the highlights in that time of my life. And carrying that forward, now my next time of interest was looking at 2 to 3 year horizon, where I said, I have my data analytics skills down. I have my creative marketing skills down. What do I want to learn next? And I really wanted to be able to build a product so that I'm not just talking about it or selling it or analyzing it, but I can build the end-to-end user experience. And that's where it brought me to my next pivot into a full stack software engineer role. And I went through a coding bootcamp where I really learned the full stack, where on the back end, learning Ruby, and on the front end, learning JavaScript, using frameworks such as Ember.js and React.js. And that's the photo you see on the top right. I think, again, I like to have milestones or capstone project for myself. And for that one, I really wanted to present some of my learnings in the form of a conference talk. And I was able to present at GDG in Madrid because that's Google developer groups during my travels when I was in Madrid. So yeah, think about the time of interest as you pursue your next career change. All right, lesson number 3. And I think this one is actually one of the most important one, and it's a reasonable or logical extension coming from area of interest, time of interest, and now what are your success criteria? Using the earlier examples, if we are looking at this as an agriculture farmer, right? This image on the screen it's probably not very successful because I don't see a lot of farming or agricultural land near San Francisco downtown. Whereas if the photo was of Gilroy with garlic farming, or even of Napa Valley with the wine industry there, that probably makes a lot more sense and that image will be successful, right? But again, going back to city, if you are a San Francisco government and you're doing city zoning and infrastructure development, this image is probably perfect for your use case. You're able to see downtown, you're able to see the Embarcadero, and in fact, you can even see the Presidio, right, on the top and the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge. And even with Karl LaFog, the clouds, we're always looking up for cloud covers at Planet. Even though the cloud obfuscate kind of the left side of the city, you really get to see 90% of the city. So this image for a civil government will be successful. So linking to that, what are the factors for your success criteria? Is it about the job, the scope of the role? Maybe it's about salary because you're at the time of your life where you need to provide for your family and financial stability is key. Or perhaps if you're younger and earlier in your career journey, and for you, personal growth and learning is the key factor for your success criteria. So think about that as you're planning your career change and planning for the next pivot. In my case, I would say that, through those different career changes, initially the success criteria were pretty immediate, right? Which are, what skills can I learn? And am I having fun with it? Am I having fun while I'm changing these different jobs or learning new things? And I would say on the top left, this was at a friend's wedding in Durban, South Africa. And for me at the time, the social aspect was a huge thing too. I really wanted to meet people. I wanted to experience different cultures. And those, my lifestyle choices were integral pieces to my success criteria beyond professional growth. And slowly, as I moved back to the US, I would say that my success criteria has changed over time. And now, instead of just focusing on perhaps immediate and personal gains, I'm really looking at how I can integrate or how I can be closer to families and what that means for my lifestyle and what I want in the long term. Starting a family, for example, mentoring other women in tech. And that's how I've been involved in women in product and tech ladies. And in some ways, still trying to get connected with my roots from when I ran a startup by attending startup conferences and just keeping fingers on the pulse about what's happening in the startup space. So that was really key, kind of shift from personal growth, lifestyle, to professional, family, as well as any mentorship impact. And that ultimately was what brought me to Planet. I think as Adria mentioned, a lot of us here, Planeteers, who are fully aligned with Planet's mission. And one of the success criteria for me when I went through the latest round of job search was around impact. I really wanted to join a company where I myself can be contributing to something that is impactful at a global scale. And really Planet way surpassed that and some more, because I would say beyond global, this is really at planetary and species level, right? And I think hopefully with the use case I have shared, you can see how it impacts industries at the time. And, I'm sure some of the speakers later will share even more interesting story, such as forestry or crisis management, and you get to hear a lot more. Yeah, so take this time in the question Q&A area. If you can think about what your success criteria are, start sharing that with us. So finally, savor the journey. I think bringing it back, the 3 lessons about area of interest, time of interest, and your success criteria. Another thing to remember is that while we are in the midst of career change or any pivot, the uncertainties are probably quite stressful, and you may feel like you don't really know where you're going or if you're going to be able to attain the goals that you have set out for yourself. But, as the famous saying goes, hindsight is always 20/20. And while you're in it, it may feel like you're going through a lot of divergence, snaking around from place to place, and it doesn't feel like a linear path. But looking back, or if you zoom out and take a bird's eye view, you will probably realize that you've made something beautiful and you have created this fantastic journey for yourself where all of those different skills and experience you pick up along the way were pieces of the puzzle. And ultimately, when you piece all of them together, they look really stunning. So I hope that will help to lessen some of the stress or anxiety you're feeling as you pivot through these uncertain times. And to close, obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and let's chat. You can connect with me on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I will be here for the networking event later on as well. So yeah, definitely reach out. And we are hiring, so always happy to chat about Planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. We are running a little behind, so we're going to skip the Q&A, but feel free to ask the questions and we will ask Lisa and we will share them later in a blog post with everyone. But right now, our next speaker is Sara, and we'll bring her right up. Hey, Sara.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you? All right, so you can get your slides. Perfect. So Sara, by means of intro and my phone, she leads the developer relations team at Planet Labs. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you. All right, so yes, I will get started. Like Angie said, I lead the DevRel team here at Planet Labs. And what I want to talk to you all about today is my experience working remote. So I've been working remotely both here at Planet and prior to Planet for about 5 or 6 years. So about 3 years here at Planet and then a couple different companies before. So along the way, I've had to pick up some new habits, some new practices and ways of working in order to make my stay in Remotesville as a remote employee sustainable. So tonight I just wanted to share some of those tips with you and go through them really quick. I want to give you a starting point, not so much teach you everything, but a starting point you can reference if you're also somewhere at the beginning of this journey. I know a lot of us are, especially in the last couple months, so it's a topic that we've all been talking about. And this, if you ask somebody for their one tip for working remotely, this one is probably what you'll hear most of. Establish a routine, make sure you have a routine. So I'm putting this first because it is so common that you'll hear it. I have a couple things I'll mention after this, less common, but I do think that this is important. But something important to notice here is that word new, because I'm talking about establishing a new routine. You need to develop some new routine that works for you because this isn't the same as your pre-Remotesville routine. Your life is no longer in the same patterns. You're not going to get up in the morning and pack a lunch, probably. You're not going to get in your car, stop at the gas station on the way. You're probably not even going to put your shoes on in the morning. So it's a completely different scenario, which means it's going to take a different routine. But routines are still important because our brains can be stupid and we want to trick them. A routine helps you trick your brain into understanding that we're getting ready for work, we're going to work, we're no longer sitting at home in bed, it's not the weekend, it's still a weekday. So taking that time to get dressed in the morning, do your hair, put on something that makes you feel powerful and professional, it really helps separate that situation in your head between home and work. So build in a morning routine that takes care of you. Maybe do some yoga, meditate, go for a run, whatever it takes to establish that new routine. But some other things that people don't necessarily talk about. So a friend of mine shared this concept with me a couple months ago and I really loved it, so I had to stick it in here. Teach yourself and give yourself permission to put your body first. So what I really mean by this is a lot of times when we're working solo at home, it can become really easy to just stop listening to our body's needs. If we're not changing what we're doing or interacting with other people, if we're just sitting at our desks for 8 hours a day with our cat or our dog sitting under the desk, then you can really start ignoring your own body's needs. So if you catch yourself feeling out of sorts or not able to get into that workflow like you usually do, or just feeling like something's wrong or you keep beating your head against the same bug for 10 minutes, take a minute and check in with yourself. See if there's some body's needs that you've been ignoring. Did you skip lunch? Have you not stood up from your desk for 4 hours? Since you don't have like a water cooler to walk towards, maybe you forgot to get a drink of water. Hydration is important, but just take a moment, check in with yourself, because a lot of times the ways that we're feeling are actually directly related to ignoring what our body's asking for. And similarly, talking about stepping away from your desk, when you're working remotely, you really have to make space for scene changes. If you're in an office, many times a day. You're going to get up, you're going to go to a conference room, you're going to go visit your coworker's desk, you're going to go to somebody else's desk and ask to see what they're working on. You've got all these opportunities to change your scene, but when you're working at home, you don't have those opportunities anymore. So you have to deliberately make space for them, schedule them into your daily routine. Maybe you're going to take your dog for a walk for a half hour every afternoon. Put that on your work calendar. Or maybe every Monday morning you water all your plants. Put that on your calendar. Put dancing breaks on your calendar. I have friends that do that and I love it. You're working remotely though. Your schedule can be flexible. Maybe you can do a yoga class at 1 p.m. Maybe you have the freedom to do that. But you have to deliberately seek out those opportunities to change your scene. Similarly, you have to seek out connection. You really have to rethink what it means to make connection. If you're working remotely, like I said, you don't have those coworkers' desks to walk to. You don't have a water cooler. You don't have a break room to go make a cup of coffee or grab your lunch and heat it up. You don't have those natural opportunities for connection. So as a Remotesville citizen, you need to be deliberate and intentional about this. You have to, instead of just telling a coworker on Slack, hey, we should get coffee sometime, you should send them a calendar invite for 2 p.m. on Wednesday and say, hey, I'm going to be on Zoom having coffee. Let's chat. Make it an intentional and easy way for them to accept and say, yeah, let's connect. Find opportunities to network. Find a network of other people working remotely, whether it's at your current company or friends that you know who are at different companies. And if you don't have a network already and you can't find one, maybe that's a perfect time for you to make your own. Something that's really great that we sort of overlook in remote work is co-working. It can be really great to just co-work with somebody. And I don't mean an active Zoom chat like a coffee break where you're talking back and forth, but maybe you just open a video call with a coworker and you guys just sit there in silence doing your own work together, and it's really companionable. So rethinking what we mean when we're thinking about human connection and then being deliberate and intentional about it is what's going to make that remote work environment more sustainable. Something to watch for is to beware about the creeping attraction of home comforts. So if you're working in Remotesville, you've got a comfy couch, you've got a comfy bed, you've got all of the comforts of home. But I strongly recommend that you don't work from your bed. So I know Deanna is going to talk to us later about satellite operations from bed, and I totally fully endorse that. I think that's awesome. But what I mean when I say don't work from bed is don't make this your normal Monday to Friday 9 to 5 office space. You need to, like I said, brains are stupid. You need to trick your brain into understanding home versus workspace. You have to use sensory cues to signal that difference. You have to let yourself close an office door at the end of the day. So maybe you don't actually have an office at your house, but you have to mentally be able to close that door. If you're working from your bed all day, it's super comfortable, it's awesome, maybe you're even really productive. But then the problem comes when it's time to go to bed and you want to sleep, but your brain is like, oh, this is where I've been working all day. So you start thinking about work again, and your brain starts turning the last problem you're working on over in your head. And it's really difficult to have that isolation. So maybe at home you don't have a lot of space. Maybe you're working from your dining table. That was me for the first 2 years of my remote career. But something you could do is put a lamp on that table and turn that lamp on only when you're working. And when you're done working, the lamp's off. Little stuff like that, those sensory cues can really make a difference in being able to mentally close that office door. But I've given you a lot of advice, and I do want you to remember these are interesting times where we're living through right now. This isn't the normal time that you would be switching to working remote in tech. So give yourself permission to practice a little self-compassion and be kind to yourself. But also be honest, because compassion doesn't mean lying to yourself. So if you forget to step away from your desk for 8 hours, or maybe you failed to put anything besides coffee and LaCroix in your body since 8 a.m. today, it's okay. But it's important to be honest and name that and understand that it happened, and then just try again tomorrow. You understand that it's important to listen to your body, to stay hydrated, to take those opportunities for scene change, and just try again tomorrow. So try to create a routine that works for you, a new routine. You're not going to make your old routine work here. Take breaks, remember to move around, listen to your body and brain's needs. Intentionally seek out human connection and make invitations to people that are easy to act upon, that are not passive. And don't let a comfort creep overtake you. Try not to work from bed all day, every day. Don't ignore your body and your brain's needs. Don't skip meals. It's okay to take a break and step away from your desk, but above all, don't be too hard on yourself. So I don't know if we have time for Q&A. I would love to take questions if I can, but otherwise that's my contact info. I would love to hear from any and all of you.
That was great. Thank you so much. We're definitely going to take questions later, like Angie mentioned, but thank you so much. All right. Next up, so Barb is a software engineering manager and developer on the applications team at Planet. Take it away, Barb. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. Thank you. Hey, everybody. My name is Barbara Vazquez. I go by Barb, and I'm a software engineering manager and developer as well at Planet. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I have been working in the geospatial industry as a software engineer since 2008 when I moved to the DC area. And I have been living, right now I'm in Maryland, but I've been in the DC area since then. I joined Planet about 3 years ago in 2017. And I'm part of the web applications team. We build some of the tools that help people have easier access to our data. The main thing that, if you're familiar with Planet, is an application called Planet Explorer. If not, go check it out, planet.com Explorer. Now, what I'm gonna talk about today, it's about agile development and estimation. It's mostly focused because I'm a software engineer and we do agile development at Planet. And these are some tips and things that might be useful for people doing agile, even if you're not doing agile. Thinking about estimation and how much something will take you to do is useful on a day-to-day. But with further ado, if you've done agile development and you do the daily scrums or the daily meetings, you've had these thoughts, what are points? Why are people asking me so many questions, so many times, when will it be done? Why do I have to give status every day? And it can get tiresome, and you might just want to flip the table and say, this is not what I signed up for. This is not why I want to do software engineering. But through the years, I've learned that it can work in your favor. It can actually help you be more organized and communicate better, to have less stress. So estimating with points. If you're not familiar with Agile or points is a system that tells people, mostly managers, how difficult you think a thing is and how long it will take you. But in my perspective, yes, that's one benefit, to tell your manager when things will get done, but it will help you be honest with yourself. Can I really do this? Is 2 weeks enough? Or however long you have to develop something. That doing the mental exercise will get you in a better spot where you might not need to pull all-nighters. If you have to work weekends to meet your deliverables, you're probably signing up for too much, or you might be underestimating what is being asked from you. In Agile, the way it works, you sign up for work and you have X weeks to do something. I'll use our example. We do 2 weeks of development. If after those 2 weeks, every time you're rolling over things, rolling over means that you did not complete it, that means something is wrong in the process. It's not necessarily you, it's a team thing. It's being underestimated. Scope creep happens. You're midway, you're almost done, and then somebody's like, did you think about this? What about you do that? And you go on a tangent and you forget about your original goalpost. Or the biggest one that nobody wants to admit is you probably don't have enough information. But how do you tell your manager that you don't have enough information? Shouldn't you be able to do it on your own? Not really. That's what the whole point of Agile and team development should be. And points are there to help you communicate that. How to start doing better estimates. One thing I do with my team is ignore numbers. Just give me t-shirt sizes. Small, medium, large, or extra large. Extra large. Can I do this in 2 weeks? If it's an extra large, no. It probably needs to be broken apart. You probably need to talk more about it. A large size will probably take me the 2 weeks. I'm threading there on borderline, not completing it, but let's give it a shot and let's see how it goes. Medium, I can get this done. I don't know how long it will take me. It's definitely gonna be more than a day, but I can get it done. And small is, I can do this with my eyes closed. It doesn't matter. Those are that's my rule of thumb when I go to do estimates. It's give me a sense. How do you feel this is? So that we can have that conversation of how long it will take. As soon as you do this mental exercise, you'll get in a better habit. You'll start recognizing better, I don't have enough information, or this is super easy. Why am I even thinking about it? Let's get it done. So once you get the t-shirt sizes down, you can map this to whatever point system your team uses, if that's the preferred methodology. A lot of people use the Fibonacci sequence, where it's 1, 2, 3, 5, up to 13, where a 13 is the extra large equivalent. So these, once you get used to and you're like being able to do t-shirt sizes, you can move up to doing the point systems. In any case, even if you don't do Agile, thinking about your tasks in t-shirt sizes can help you think about difficulty, can help you keep yourself organized and just do that mental exercise of what do you need to get done that week. The other point, 2 points, no pun intended, is keep in mind your other responsibilities. Add some buffer. You might be able to sign up just keeping with the example, 2 medium things, because life happens. Add some buffer. COVID has taught us that life is unpredictable, and your normal cadence is not the same anymore. Distractions happen. You might have family at home. Take that into consideration as well when you're doing these estimates. And the other point, the other thing to think about with points is it helps you negotiate. It helps you make sure priorities are clear of what needs to be done first versus what needs to be done later. If your plate is full, whether it's with actual tasking, if it's with life, use the points to help you drive conversations. I can only do so many medium stories. If I sign up for one more, I will definitely roll it over because that's what I've learned. And in the end, having slightly more predictable cadence is valuable for everybody. And again, I say slightly because life happens and we cannot be 100% predictable, but we can get there. And that's all I have. Thank you, everybody. I know we don't have time for a Q&A, but that's my email, barb@planet.com, if you want to reach out, or we can talk later.
Awesome. Thank you, Barb. That was really great. I'm going to find Kelsey.
Video. Perfect.
Great. You can see you. So Kelsey is a space systems engineer at Planet. Welcome, Kelsey.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so good evening, everyone. My name is Kelsey Doerksen, and I am a space systems engineer at Planet. I started about 4 weeks before work from home was in order for the San Francisco office. So I got only a little taste of what it was like to work in the physical San Francisco office, but I'm really happy with my past 5 months being a part of the team. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to handle big data in space and the different machine learning projects I've been a part of over the past few years. And so I'm just going to jump right into it. So first I want to start off with what is machine learning and what do I really mean by big data. So big data is really just that. It's a large volume of data or a lot of data. And we use machine learning with this big data to seek statistical patterns, to enable computers and algorithms to make either a classification, such as differing between pictures of dogs and cats, or prediction about the data. I really like this 3-step image here that basically breaks down what machine learning is really at a high level, where you start with this big conglomerate of data, you can't really make sense of it or extract any meaningful information from it. You apply analytics to it, and in this case, it would be a machine learning algorithm. And from those analytics, you're able to make informed decisions about the data in question. So I'm going to be talking about 3 different projects I've worked on at a very high level. So don't be worried if you don't know anything about machine learning. And I'm going to start off with my first project I worked on, which has to do with machine learning on Mars. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Mars Exploration Rover mission, this was a NASA mission that launched in 2003, and it sent 2 twin Mars rovers, Spirit and Opportunity, to the surface of Mars. Unfortunately for the Spirit rover, its wheel actually got stuck in the Martian soil. You can see in that black and white GIF image there, that is taken from the Spirit rover itself. And unfortunately, the mission was lost in 2010 for the Spirit rover because its wheel was stuck in the sand and they weren't able to get it free. So how could we have used machine learning in order to prevent this from happening for future Mars rover missions? As we know, Perseverance is launching hopefully soon, barring any delays. So this is a project I worked on at the NASA Jet Propulsion Lab called the Barefoot Rover Project. Essentially what the Barefoot Rover Project purpose was to use what is physically felt by the Mars rover wheels to be able to detect different things about the surface it was rolling across of. So my work was specific to making sure the wheels were not slipping or sinking into the different types of sand material we had at the JPL campus. And it was also, I worked on the terrain classification and detecting if there was any subsurface rocks that could possibly penetrate the wheel and cause damage to the wheels. How this worked from a machine learning perspective, at a very high level, essentially what we had was a yellow pressure pad wrapped around the outside of the Mars rover wheel. And we took those pressure pad readings and trained that in a classifier to be able to detect these things that are on the bottom of the slide there. So we were able to tell the hydration content of the soil, anomaly detection, safety and stability of the rover, slip and sinkage, which is what I worked on, terrain classification, rock detection, and other different terramechanical properties. So this is a really cool project I worked on, and it's going to be implemented on future Mars rover missions. The second project I'll talk about is machine learning for the sun and for our Earth's atmosphere. So this very terrifying image you see on the slide here is a picture of a coronal mass ejection event. What a coronal mass ejection event is a huge explosion on the surface of the sun. And essentially what happens is these huge explosions send out high energy particles into space. You can see there, Earth is to scale in terms of the size of a coronal mass ejection and the sun as compared to the size of our Earth. The distance is not to scale, but the size of the 2 planetary bodies is. So why this is of concern, other than the fear that it strikes, of course, from this image, don't worry, it's not going to cause any, the flames will not reach our surface. But what they do is send these high energy particles to our Earth's atmosphere that essentially push our satellites around. So from a satellite operator perspective, the satellites can actually be moved off of their orbit path and collide with other objects in space, which is obviously really detrimental to the satellite operators. How can we use machine learning to tackle this sort of problem? Well, we can't stop these coronal mass ejection events from happening. Pictured there is a GIF image from the SOHO telescope that is showing what a coronal mass ejection looks like. So we can't stop these huge events from happening, but we can at least try to learn as much as possible about them and how they are affecting our satellites. And this was my master's thesis work using the satellite accelerometer data to detect these solar storms. So I mentioned before that these solar storms send out huge amounts of high energy particles and they reach our Earth's atmosphere. The way you can think about this is if you're walking outside and it's very, very windy and you're getting blown back by the wind, that's kind of what's happening to our satellites when these particles reach our atmosphere. And that can be captured in the satellite acceleration data. The 2 graphs I have pictured on the slide here, the top graph shows the acceleration of the satellite when there's solar storm happening. So you can see the signal is quite erratic and it's actually doubles and above in the linear acceleration of the satellite itself. Whereas during a period when there's no sort of solar storm, the satellite is very periodic and the signal isn't fluctuating at any alarming rate. The last project I worked on and want to introduce is, of course, using planet data, and this is machine learning for our Earth. So I'm really happy to be a part of the new partnership with the Frontier Development Lab. and Planet, which is an 8-week research sprint with the NASA and SETI Institute. And Planet is working with the Waters of the United States team, which is using Planet's daily imagery with machine learning to assist with drought detection and prediction in small streams in the continental United States. So pictured here is the Seminole Reservoir in Wyoming, United States. And the first signs of droughts can be identified in the small streams that branch off of large bodies of water like these. So by comparing pixel values in these streams, using Planet's daily imagery of sites similar to this, the team of researchers will be able to detect and predict future droughts across America with the aim to scale this work to other areas across the globe. Oh, can't get to my, there we go. So I really hope you're interested and able to follow along with those 3 different projects I worked on. I think machine learning, it's such a new and growing field, and space is the perfect application for machine learning because we have so much data. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. And thanks very much for your time.
That was excellent. Kelsey, are you seeing the comments? Awesome, Kelsey.
I can't see them, but thanks a lot.
Someone said, I want to be all the speakers. That was just amazing. I learned so much. So moving on to our next speaker, Deanna. Deanna leads the team at Planet responsible for operating and maintaining the over 100 imaging satellites or doves currently on orbit. Welcome, Deanna.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. This is my first Girl Geek event, so excited also just to hear from other Planeteers because sadly, it's a large enough company that you don't automatically know everyone, and so I love hearing everyone else's stories as well. All right, so I will present. Hopefully everyone can see that okay. All right, so as I mentioned, my name is Deanna Farago, and my team and I operate a fleet of satellites that are currently imaging the entire planet every day. And traditionally, satellite operations can be very time and resource intensive. For example, in order to operate one spacecraft, you could have a room full of engineers around the clock, 24/7 monitoring telemetry and contacts and just system performance. And our satellites operate in a different paradigm and risk posture. So this has allowed us to be able to automate a lot of the operations. Even before COVID, we could operate essentially anywhere as long as we had a good internet connection and our laptop. So before I describe what that looks like, it's important to understand what the mission is and the scale of our operations. So our company's mission 1 is to image the entire planet every day. And you need a lot of satellites in order to do that. And so we actually, in addition to operating satellites, we design, build, and test all of our satellites in-house. And this is a big advantage for us as operators because if and when we run into issues on orbit, we can work directly with the engineers that design the satellite in order to troubleshoot the problems and help come up with on-orbit mitigations, as well as design out these bugs/features in the next spacecraft iteration. And then once in space, we use just a little bit of atmosphere that we have to use something called differential drag to space out the satellites over time. And as one satellite images over a strip of land, the one right after it should image the strip of land just adjacent to it. And this essentially creates a line scanner. So what you're seeing here is a 24-hour snapshot of what the imaging strips could look like that the satellites are capturing. And so we have a distributed team operating our satellites. We have 4 people in San Francisco, 1 person in Toronto, and a team of 4 in Berlin. And we send tasks to the ground stations, which then send the schedules up to the satellites. And just a fun fact for this group that at Planet, we have 3 satellite operations teams, and they're all managed by women. So the concept of operations is actually quite simple for these doves. We don't image over the ocean, we only image over the land. But basically, anytime they're over land, they just point down, take pictures. If they're over ground stations, we downlink those pictures and logs and we communicate with them. And then in the background, we'll just run maintenance activities. So, essentially thinking of them as like tune-ups and checking in on like subsystems and keeping an eye on any degradation that might be happening or running experiments. And in theory, if the satellites are performing well, they should just be as easy as this man's rotisserie grill, where we just set it and forget it. We can even run custom experiments. We set up the tasks and not have to worry about it. However, things don't always go smooth. There's a lot of fires that can happen, and that's kind of how we know we'll never really be able to automate ourselves out of a job. These are just some examples of issues that we've seen on our satellites. So, a satellite suddenly starts spinning up, and so we have to figure out, oh, why is it spinning up? And we need to detumble it. We noticed that the satellites have low battery bus voltage, and we need to take action before they start browning out and rebooting rapidly. We see that telemetry sensors are reading 0 value. Is this a real thing, or is the sensor just being faulty and we have to reset it? Or sometimes satellites just are unresponsive out of the blue, and we have to spend time to figure out, did something change? Did something break on the satellite? Or can we just set up some automation to keep an eye on it? And so all of these actions started out as manual. We would detect these problems, and then operators would spend time triaging it and then eventually taking action. And now our teams have automated responses to all of these so that they trigger off of just telemetry from the satellite. So as soon as a satellite, our automation sees like, oh, the gyro readings are reading up, then we know the robot just basically sends a task to respond to this, so an operator doesn't actually have to. And this decreases latency in the system and gets the satellite back into production as quickly as possible. And there's always going to be unknown unknowns, and so we're constantly trying to find these new problems and automating responses to it. So what is a day in the life of an operator? Well, we work 9 to 5, and we have a checklist that we rotate among the team members. This enables our team to be able to have weekend and holiday coverage. So even though we're just working normal office hours, we want to make sure that there's always going to be satellite operators' eyes on the system every day. And for this number of satellites, we have to aggregate our data. Aggregating our data is key. So what that means is we build lots of dashboards based off of our telemetry and off of our logs from the satellite. And it allows us to be able to easily see if there's any satellites that are responding and acting out of family. And that will then trigger an operator to say, oh, this one's not behaving the same as its fellow satellites. I'm going to dig in further and try to triage it. We have weekday team stand-ups, and we're supported by amazing other teams in mission control. And those teams also have their own on-call. And so if something does break in the middle of the night that affects the whole fleet, those teams help support us. And so I wanted to show this because it's one of my favorite things that we've taken a picture of at Planet. And it's actually a series of pictures that we stitched together into a video. And we, just before a rocket launch, were able to opportunistically schedule a dove to take a series of images of a rocket delivering more doves to space. So just a real quick, cool shot. And that's shot by one of our satellites, so very cool. And then sadly, we won't be doing any missed high fives and hugs and mission control in person anytime soon, like our former coworker here, Rob Zimmerman. But we can still enjoy having first contacts and commissioning with one another virtually. And this is our, I guess, equivalent version of that. from a few years ago when we were able to successfully make contact with 88 satellites right after launch. And so with that, that's all I really wanted to share. I couldn't go into too much detail, but I'm happy to answer questions. If you'd like to email me, I'm at deanna@planet.com. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Deanna. That's really awesome. And let's see. And now we are going to bring up Elena, who has over 2 decades of experience in sales, and she will be telling us her journey.
Excellent. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm so happy for this invitation. I just joined Planet 3 months ago, and I really wanted to talk about, sorry, this is my first slide. I wanted to talk about the adventure of making a decision, how important it is for our career. But first, let me introduce what I do here at Planet. As I say, I joined the company 3 months ago. I'm this salesperson for Mexico, Central America, Ecuador, and the Caribbean. I've been in the business for more than 20 years, and I am so honored to be part of the Planet team. I'm so happy and so proud of working for a company that is offering solutions that are critical to mitigate some of the main challenges that we are facing right now, like climate change, food crisis, fighting poverty, so many applications, and I feel so proud to talk about our business when I go out there and meet my clients and resellers. So I chose a topic because this is something that I've been always thinking about it, and now I have the opportunity to talk about it, and I'm gonna take advantage of this, is how I ended up here. So I'm gonna share you my story. Everything started back in the 80s. I had all the dreams, like I wanted to be, I wanted to be a fashion designer, because that's something that I really enjoy since I was a little girl. And I took, but then it was difficult for me because fashion was a very expensive career in Venezuela. And I had a scholarship and I moved to Seattle from Venezuela to study sales and advertising. I had no choice. So let me tell you that that was the first time I didn't make any decision. I had to choose what was available for me that time. So I remember my sales teacher, Mr. Fine, it's impossible to forget him, that he was always saying that as a good salesperson is capable of selling anything, selling water to a fish. So I was growing that idea up on my mind, but I was thinking, I don't know if I'm really right for this career. Sales is like, I don't know. However, I was always thinking, like when I was a little girl, I was drawing paper dolls and I was selling those to my friends at school. I was making bracelets with the colorful telephone wires and I was selling those. So I was a salesperson already. So, but I went back to Venezuela and I graduated, but I was still thinking, I don't know, what do I want to do? This is my passion. I want to be a fashion designer. And it took me 4 years to graduate. It was the beginning of this career in Venezuela, and it was a lot of work. It was very expensive. There were nights that I couldn't sleep doing all the drawings, the designs, and making all these dresses. This yellow one and the one along here, those I made them. And I was so inspired then, because that's exactly what I wanted to do. But then something funny happened during this practice, is that every time my friends called me and asked me for a dress, because they chose the fabrics, I had my atelier, they chose what they liked, and I made the dresses. Then when they came home to pick them up, I didn't want to sell them. I was like, no, I keep it. So decided that's not for me. So it took me a while and was thinking, okay, what am I gonna do? So we all go through this, I need to make a decision. I need to plan because I had a strong pressure from society in my country. And I made a decision. I thought it was time for me to, to have a family. And that was a decision that really, I thought about it a lot because I know what it meant for me at that time, that I had to give up some things that were important for some time. But those changes, I always ask myself, was I sacrificing passion to adapt to a new reality? Because I had that question on my mind. And the answer is definitely no. I was just growing up and it was time for me to make that decision and get prepared and be responsible for the decision that I had made. So, in 1995, it was a huge revolution in Venezuela because that's when internet arrived to our country. But it was the time also when my boy was born. He's 25 right now. And I remember I was taking care of my son and I was hearing all this noise outside. My husband and his friends talking about internet. Let's go, let's navigate, let's check. They were looking for some topics and they were celebrating. And I was, I was feeding my baby and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I think I'm losing something. Something is happening here. And I don't know, I don't want to sound selfish, but I had that on my mind, So what am I going to do? It's technology, but I don't know if I can even think about that. Would I ever touch a computer again? So I had all these questions at that time. After years, things turned to be kind of difficult in my country. And I had to go, I had to live outside, definitely my atelier. And I had to go outside and find a different job, something, because I needed to bring money because I had a family and things were difficult. But I was ready to get back on track, but I wasn't ready for the technology. I had missed 1 year of all these changes. So selling was becoming more challenging. New terminologies, services, a new way of communication skills. So the first job I got out there was for selling ads for a magazine called Computer World. So names like Microsoft, Sun Microsystems, IBM, HP, and those that were never familiar to me started to be new, and that was nice. I was into a complete different world. So this job was the one that allowed me to meet the people that helped me, that guided me, that inspired me to be in this field. And to be honest, selling was never so, had never been so much gratifying for me. 5 years later, I had to make a very difficult decision. That, by the way, this week when I was practicing this presentation, I found out how your country, your family, your culture really touched you. And I was like, I didn't realize before, it's like I was keeping that into myself. That it was a big decision. It wasn't something that I was prepared for, but that was the time where the political situation in my country was unsustainable. It started to be unsustainable, now it's even worse. And I had a job offer in Mexico, and I didn't think twice. I moved here. And as you can see the picture, it was I think that was my first week here in Mexico. And you can see all the disaster. And remember, I was asking if I would ever touch a computer again. Well, here is a computer, but I was only able to touch it because it was impossible to carry, so heavy. That everything has been changing, as we know. That's funny. So that's when I started it was like, for me, that was my own revolution, geospatial, learning all new terminologies. It was such an exciting world. I was working with geographers, engineers, and so many people that I met in the industry. I really was in love with this new market. I was like, wow. And I'm very proud because I participated in the first ground station sale to the Mexican government. And I had all these questions, from people. I mean, what is that you do? Are you a spy? What is it? And that was very funny. But every time I had more challenges, it was the time for me to learn more. And that was very interesting. And I don't regret. I've been doing this for more than 20 years now. I still live in Mexico. I've met such interesting people, nice people, been in this environment, this world, and I feel the pride to sell something that I know that is gonna go there to help people, to make people make good decisions. And this is something I feel so proud about. And I'm here. This is what I do now. This special work got me. I've been doing this for, as I said, for more than 20 years. I've been in the drones industry as well. I learned how to fly a drone. I was so proud about it. This picture here in the mining, it was something very scary because that was in Peru, and I had to sleep there. So many nice adventures. I'm so happy that I decided to stay here. I don't think that I changed from fashion designing to the geospatial world. I can always be creative, and I use the fashion designing for myself. So I like clothes. I like that. That's inevitable. I can't leave that behind. But this is, the right decisions brought me here. No regrets. How I did it. I don't know. As you see, sometimes we need to do what we need to do. I've been humble. I know that I'm not an expert. I've been learning, and I always learn. It's very challenging, this world. I've been relying on those experts that are willing to teach me, and I take that very seriously. I understood that there are many interesting ways to explore different options. I learned that we have to capitalize the knowledge, because after you invest so much time in learning about something, changing, well, probably it's not such a good idea. Well, I don't want to discourage the people that are doing this, but for me, I said, no, this is what I've learned. It took me a long time. I want to be here. I wanted to be the desire to be part of the change that's something that really pushed me as well. So that keeps me investigating and asking. So I'm curious about the technology, and especially about the things that I do. As every time I made the decision, of course, I had to ask myself how it was going to benefit or affect my loved ones. And understanding that it's not always about me, that I have to care for my family, the company that I work for, is a world outside. I have faith in people. Trust me, I believe in people. I think we are a big team. And I have a real engagement for the environment. And I don't know, I take care of my garden, my little dog, and I really care about that. And well, that's it. Thank you. I think we don't have time for questions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Elena. That was amazing. We learned so much from you. So our next speaker is Sara Preston. Sara is a marketing manager at Planet Labs, exploring how to use space-based imagery to improve life on Earth. Just pulling Sara up. Hi, Sara. How's it going? Right in front of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Thanks. Out here in San Francisco. You can hear me all right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And okay, can you all see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, my name is Sara Preston. I'm a product marketing manager at Planet. Now, a product marketing manager, product marketing can mean a lot of different things at a lot of different organizations, but what I do is I work across our product and our marketing team and our sales teams to really find the right fit for our imagery and to understand what our prospects and what our audiences need out of imagery, even if they don't know it yet. As you can imagine, narratives are an extremely important part of what I do. So I'm super excited to be here with you all to geek out about data-driven storytelling. Okay, so first, why do we tell stories in the first place? Stories are paths to community and understanding. So think about all the stories that you loved growing up. There was some kind of connection that you made either to a character, to the author, or to the setting that drew you in and made it really memorable. You joined that community that was telling that story. And within that story, whether it's fact or fiction, there was information, and you got to learn from others in that community and to build an understanding about the world around you. What is a good story? So a good story is driven by emotion and balanced by fact. That's one of my favorite quotes actually that I heard. I can't claim ownership of it, but really when we listen to a great story and we create a connection to a story, we're really feeling some emotion, and emotions can be extremely powerful motivators. So think in or outside of the workplace even, an emotion can be excitement, it can be fear, it can be confusion, it can be ambition, but also a very human desire to understand the world around us. Emotions, they get us engaged in a story and interested, but facts and data, they keep us grounded. So as an example of how you might be able to see this, Planet took this image of Pripyat, Ukraine back in April. Now this was when Pripyat was experiencing massive wildfires, and this was right outside of the Chernobyl exclusion zone that you can see in the center there. It was an extremely dangerous time. Already a dangerous area, radiation levels had spiked 16 times more than usual. And Ukrainian officials were telling the world basically that these fires had been controlled and extinguished. Clearly not the case. Now, hearing this, when we talk about emotions, hearing this story in the news, you can't help but feel a sense of fear, maybe helplessness, and anxiety, and all these emotions that are driving, maybe not necessarily the international community, but driving officials to understand what is happening and how can we solve it. Well, Planet came in and we captured this image, and this image has a lot of data in it to help move these decisions forward, to help these move and capture these emotions. So when we look at this image, we can see where the smoke is drifting. That tells us where the wildfire might be spreading to. We can see how far the wildfire has already spread on a grander scale. We can see how close it is to the Chernobyl exclusion zone, so how radiation levels might continue to increase. And it tells us a lot about where we can deploy resources and where we can deploy flame retardant and at the same time keep all of our first responders safe. We had these emotions that we were feeling at the beginning, and a really good way to think about it is emotions, they move us forward, they encourage us to do something, but facts and data, they move us forward in the right direction. They give us an idea or an insight about where to go. So how do we craft great stories? Great stories is really about taking our audience, or on a business scale, our prospects, on a journey from ignorance to understanding. Now, there are not 3 key points to creating a great story. This could be an hour-long seminar, and I've been to them before. It's such a fascinating subject, but given the time we have, I narrowed it down to 3 points that I think are very important. Know your audience. You want to understand what are their motivations, what are their expectations, maybe what do they feel themselves on a daily basis, what's their vocabulary, so how do they communicate with each other and interact with the rest of the world. You want to really clarify the problem. So every story has its key conflict. So you want to understand what exactly is the conflict of the story you're building and what is driving it, whether that is the emotions. And then you want to create some insight. So what is the data showing us? So this is the second half of the storytelling. How do we get past the conflict and use that data to create an insight to move us all forward? And here is an example also at Planet of how we recently used those points to create a broader story. So we started work with the New Mexico State and Land Office, and they were looking to monitor permitting activity in the Permian Basin. You can see that on the right side of the screen, a sample image. And there's a lot of mining activity out there, but they just couldn't see it in the way they wanted to. So first, what we did here is we had to know your audience, right? So we understood and came to understand how exactly the office itself functions, how it fits in with the broader civil government, what exactly is their legal mandate, who is our main point of contact, and how to best really work with them in the first place. This is knowing how to communicate with them. Now, once we know how to communicate with them, we can clarify the problem. So why is the office really experiencing this challenge? Why did they have very poor visibility into the more remote Permian Basin? Well, aerial photography, like they've tried, was very slow and resource intensive, as was manned surveys. So sending people out there to actually see what's going on. It was growing expensive. They were growing frustrated really that they didn't really have a good way to monitor this land. So what Planet did was, now that we knew our audience and we'd been clarifying the problem, we were able to deliver the data to really create a good insight to solve their challenge. So this is sample data again right here on the right of the screen. We deliver near daily imagery to them so they can see change and what's actually happening in activity. And once they see that activity, then they can deploy resources, whether that's people or anything else to solve that issue. And before I wrap up, I want to put another little plug. If you're interested in learning more about storytelling at Planet, we actually have a customer conference coming up in October, and we're going to be featuring customers and partners talking about how they used our imagery for their own storytelling and how they've been able to build their own paths to understanding and building their own communities. The reason I want to feature this here is because it's actually completely free this year and online, so very, very accessible. And before I completely close out, my last point really is, we are in a hugely data-driven world, and it's really not so much about just collecting data anymore. It's about collecting the right data and really understanding how to use it, how we get insights and go from that ignorance to that understanding to create solutions and to create great stories around our world. I don't think I have time for questions, but that is my short brief. Again, this is a topic I could talk about at length, but hopefully you captured something out of this.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Sara. And we are now going to be bringing up Brittany, who is a natural disaster research scientist turned businesswoman.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you all tonight. My name is Brittany Zajic, and I'm on the business development team here at Planet. Business development means something different at every company, and here we focus on strategic partnerships and the commercialization of new markets. I also lead our disaster response operations, which is part of our social impact initiatives, where we provide satellite imagery to first responders and official stakeholders in the event of a large natural disaster anywhere in the world. And while not exactly a natural disaster. COVID-19 is very much a global public health crisis, reshaping all of our behaviors and our environmental systems. So today I'm going to talk about how satellite imagery is helping us better understand the impacts of this pandemic. So by capturing a series of places in different points of time, satellite imagery is able to tell an important story. So when millions of people began sheltering in place earlier this year, many looked to Planet asking how we could help. So how can satellite imagery help during a pandemic? Tonight, I am going to showcase a few of the many applications surrounding the economic and environmental impacts of COVID-19. First, we head to Wuhan, China, to see the start of their shelter in place. In these first two comparisons, we see a stark difference of traffic patterns in these images taken only 2 weeks apart, with not a single car in sight starting January 28th. And I'll go back one more time. I know this is quick. We then shift to expand further beyond just the limited car transportation, and instead think about the closures of factories, construction sites, and all other industrial activities that had a dramatic effect on the air quality in regions of and parts of China. Here is a comparison over a portion of Beijing from the start of the year on the left to March 2020 on the right. We then shift to Italy, the next epicenter of COVID-19. Many media outlets spoke of the now quiet canals and the cleaner waters running through the city, which was largely captured in these series of images here. I'll run through these one more time. So this is October 2019, March 2020, February 28th, 2020, and March 15th. So finally, we have the next epicenter that migrates to the United States, where it continues to remain today. New York was hit hardest, and here we can see the construction of a temporary hospital in none other than Central Park, Manhattan, in the heart of New York. The rest of the United States followed suit soon after and shut down as well. So from the Bay Bridge toll that you take from going Oakland to downtown San Francisco, to the decrease in air travel, here's a Southern California logistics airport, and just to highlight, we can see all the airplanes stacked up, not being in use. To the empty beaches of Miami Beach, Florida, and then also the empty parking lots of Disney World in Orlando, Florida. So it's pretty incredible for satellites to be able to so clearly capture this pause on life that has been experienced, that we've all been experiencing these past couple of months. Now, there is no question that one data set has been able to tell a great story, but planet imagery combined with multiple other data sets is going to be able to tell us even more. So I'm going to spend the remainder of this talk today talking about eodashboard.org, an international collaboration among space agencies that is central to the success of satellite Earth observation and data analysis. So the Tri-Agency COVID-19 Dashboard is a concentrated effort between the European Space Agency, the Japanese Space Agency, and NASA. The dashboard combines the resources, technical knowledge, and expertise of these three partner organizations to strengthen our global understanding of the environmental and economic impacts of COVID-19. So if we remember back to my early example in Venice, Italy, we visually saw the difference of boat traffic and water turbidity. Now with the EOS dashboard, using information from several different satellites and sensor types, we're able to turn that visualization into a quantitative assessment and observation, which is incredibly valuable when measuring environmental and economic indicators or factors. So a second example of these quantitative metrics is the air quality in Beijing. Again, deriving these insights from an entire suite of different satellites. The ability to analyze these trends from space aids the effort to fight and defeat this pandemic. So I leave you all with encouraging you to further explore this dashboard and learn more about how COVID-19 is impacting people all over the world and explore it through the lens of satellite imagery, because together we can defeat this. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. That was great. Our next speaker is Nikki Hampton. Nikki is Planet's VP of People and Talent, and she would like to share a few words on their commitment to diversity and inclusion. Welcome, Nikki.
Thank you. I want to thank all of the speakers. Even though I know all of these women, I learned so much about them and the work they do and how they got to where they are. So I'm pretty excited about that. I mostly wanted to say that at Planet, we have always been committed to diversity, but we are doubling down on our commitment, and particularly so looking with respect to attracting and retaining communities of color. And so for all of you online, we are looking forward to and eager to work with you to tap into a broader network of talented folks that you might want to consider referring to us or applying and sharing, with whom you know. But we're super excited to have been part of this and are grateful that you all attended.
Thank you so much for that, Nikki. So now we're going to just move into the Q&A. If there are a few questions, I think we have literally like 5 minutes till 8 p.m. when we kick off networking. So if you have any questions, please ask them in the Q&A section, and we will be sharing them with Planet, and you'll be getting a follow-up email with the job links. They are hiring for some positions like senior corporate counsel, systems engineer, software engineer, account executives. So you can be like Elena, sales development reps, customer success managers, and more. And the job links are usually in our Girl Geek X Planet emails that you're receiving. So just scroll down and click on those links or forward it to a friend who is looking for a new role. So we will be heading over to our networking hour at 8. It is on a platform called icebreaker.video, and you have the link in your email. If you look in your email, or we can put it in this chat. And we'll be doing some facilitated one-on-one networking where you literally meet one-on-one with people in a non-Zoom environment. It's going to be more fun, and you actually get to talk to people and see their faces. So if you can...
Yeah, and I wanted to call out thank you so much to everybody speaking, and thanks to everybody who has been commenting. I definitely see that, it has been super valuable for you all. I wanted to mention, because I've also been getting asked how you can get your company to partner with us to do a virtual Girl Geek Dinner. Definitely reach out to us through the website, sponsor@girlgeek.io. That's our email. And if you want to reach out individually to Angie or I, our emails are listed on the website as well. The other thing I wanted to say is, if you do get your company to sponsor, you must sign up to be one of the speakers, own it, use the stage that you are creating for everyone else to, promote yourself as well. Yeah, so that's all I had.
Great. So thank you all for being so good at the chat, and we'll see you over at icebreaker.video so we can chat one-on-one with everyone. Thank you all, and we'll see you there. We're going to keep this on so people can see the link and click on it, and hopefully we'll rejoin and see you over there in a minute. Okay, bye.
I said that tonight. We could all be stars. I said that tonight. We could all be stars. I said that tonight. We could all be stars.